They say when you're in trouble, you better call Saul. But is it really all Goodman if he's up against the ace attorney? That's exactly what we're gonna find out today. So be sure to like and subscribe because I'm going through all the evidence available to reach a verdict between Phoenix Wright and Saul Goodman. Who is the better lawyer? Spoilers for both the Breaking Bad and Ace Attorney franchises, by the way. Now, let's break this down into 4 parts. First, let's go over their respective styles. Then, what would happen if they tried to defend someone who is innocent versus someone who is guilty. Next, we'll cover how well their respective skills translate to the real world. And finally, what would happen if they were to face off against each other. But since they are both defense attorneys, we'll be framing this as more of a legal debate where they each have to defend their respective clients from the allegations against them. But by the end, we will know who is truly the superior lawyer, as well as who we would really want defending you, the criminal lawyer or the ace attorney. Starting off with Jimmy McGill, aka Saul Goodman, the main advantage that he brings is his smooth talking. Saul is charismatic and persuasive, able to talk his way out of seemingly inescapable situations and always remain a step ahead. He frequently pairs this with his extensive knowledge of the law to get his clients to avoid charges that were basically guaranteed. The 2 best examples of his persuasiveness that I can think of is when he talks down drug lord Tuco Salamanca for murdering 2 guys to merely breaking their legs. This being the same Tuco who would explode and kill his own friends for virtually no reason. Saul managed to talk down the most unreasonable man alive. And in the series finale of Better Call Saul, he manages to make a deal, cutting down a life plus a 190-year sentence to just 7 years, and almost getting ice cream on Friday. The sheer absurdity of him pleading guilty to these charges and still getting hundreds of years removed from his sentence is absurd. This should show you the extent of Saul's silver tongue. He is passing every single persuasion check. Not to mention, he always has something up his sleeve. Saul is a criminal lawyer. And I mean that literally. He is a criminal who is a lawyer.
A criminal lawyer.
To Slippin' Jimmy, the law is more of a suggestion than anything else, and he is willing to go as far as it takes to win cases for his clients, crossing all manner of boundaries, legal, ethical, moral, all by the wayside for Slippin' Jimmy here. He will commit fraud, falsify evidence, tamper with witnesses, pull off some actual chicanery as he runs circles around the judges, the prosecutors, and just about anyone who gets in his way. Phoenix Wright, on the other hand, almost seems cartoonishly unprepared in comparison. Every time Phoenix steps into a courtroom, it seems that this is his first time stepping into a courtroom, like he's there to argue a case he knows nothing about. Every testimony surprises him, every piece of evidence presented digs a deeper hole for his client, and yet it is here that Phoenix Wright truly shines. While Saul makes the trial go the way he planned, Phoenix just prolongs the trial until he can find the inconsistencies in the well-laid narratives of the prosecutors, and he pairs this with the evidence available to always provide an effective counter-narrative. He is able to pull this off because he believes completely in his client and doesn't stop digging until he finds the truth. With his ability to think on his feet, he seems to take information he just learned, find the details everyone else missed, and dismantle all arguments before him until he proves his client's innocence. And while not as corrupt as Jimmy, Phoenix does still do some nonsense in court. From cross-examining a parrot to defending an orca. He even once knowingly submitted forged evidence himself, so Phoenix is able to give as good as he gets. These two do have weaknesses though. Nobody can bat 1,000, and likewise, these two cannot convince anyone who does not want to listen. Like when Saul was almost shot in Bagman, or when Phoenix was disbarred because the judge wouldn't listen. Not to mention, Phoenix is constantly getting bailed out by some last-second piece of evidence, or by someone showing up to help him out. While Saul, when he doesn't have the upper hand, is impulsive and tends to crash out, ultimately leading to his downfall. I mean, you don't commit a Chicago sunroof because you're calm and collected. Meaning, if these two were to face each other, we could potentially see Phoenix getting trapped in one of Saul's schemes, or Phoenix causing Saul to have a breakdown the same way most people who face Phoenix ultimately do. Moving on to defending the innocent, I won't spend too long on this, as this is kind of a slam dunk for the both of them, although they might go about it in different ways. Saul, most of the time, will shut down the police's investigation, cut a deal, or quite simply get the case thrown out. Meaning if his client is innocent, odds are they're gonna walk long before it even hits trial. Phoenix, on the other hand, only takes cases of people already going to trial, and as such, spends his time using his skills to cut through the mountains of evidence against his clients to find the truth and prove their innocence. In terms of defending the guilty, this is where things become a bit more interesting. Phoenix, if you are guilty, will likely not help you. Yeah, he's kind of a bad lawyer in that respect, but if he already took you on as a client before discovering you were guilty, he will likely give you a fair defense. As when he defended Matt on guard, who was guilty, he was really close to having him be found innocent by using the evidence to craft a narrative against Adrian Andrews instead. Although he really only sealed the deal on that when the assassin lied and said that she was his client. That being said, Phoenix may try to sabotage and keep the trial going until the truth about you being guilty comes to light. Saul, on the other hand, will just get your case thrown out. But only if the crime isn't too severe, as shown when he thought it was impossible to get Lalo's murder case to not go to trial. If the case does go to trial, there is no shot you will be found innocent, as we never actually see Saul get a guilty person to go free. Instead, Saul merely gets them some greatly reduced sentences. Next, how would they fare in the real world? As impressive as these two are, if their skills can't be applied to the real world, you're probably not going to want to call either of them in a real trial. So, starting with Saul Goodman, while there are some slight inaccuracies, his show is actually pretty realistic in its depiction of the law, even to the point that most of his cases are settled out of court, the same way that 95% of cases in real life don't actually go to trial. All in all, that means Saul will be just as skilled in real life as he is in the show. As for Phoenix Wright, well, Ace Attorney takes place in a very Japan-inspired Los Angeles, and the legal system in this society is actually radically different from the legal system we face in our world. To be frank, if you called Phoenix Wright to your defense, and he acts the way he does in the games, he will likely grant you a mistrial rather than a not guilty verdict. He brings evidence without a foundation, submitting it in the middle of a trial, he argues during examination, he doesn't object when he should, letting the prosecutors get away with way more than they should. Quite frankly, it's to a point where he might only know what a trial is in concept, because the way it works in his world is nothing like ours. And yet, this same fact might actually end up working in his favor. While he is not submitting evidence properly and arguing when he shouldn't, these negatives are far easier to correct when you consider how much easier a trial is in our world. Ace Attorney, quite frankly, takes place in a legal dystopia. Trials begin the day after the crime, meaning half the time, Phoenix might be walking into court to defend a case he genuinely knows nothing about. In his first case, in which he was presiding over a murder trial on his first day as an attorney ever, he knew no facts of the case, had no evidence, and didn't even speak to his client yet. On top of that, the trial is presided over by a judge who will penalize you for mentioning or presenting anything that does not seem to immediately prove your point. And if you receive enough penalties, he will prematurely end the trial and declare your client guilty. Because that is the second major point here. While in America, you are innocent until proven guilty, and trials like a murder case have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, in the world of Phoenix Wright, you are guilty until proven innocent. And it's to the point that you can't just establish reasonable doubt, you have to literally prove someone else committed the crime, or else your client will be going to prison, creating an absolute double standard where you have to provide evidence to justify just about every claim you make, while the prosecution can really just accuse your client of anything and the judge will accept it as fact. Finally, all trials in this world are a maximum of 3 days. Meaning if you can't prove your client innocent in 3 days, they are immediately declared guilty. Even though trials in the real world take months, if not years, and definitely don't start sometimes mere hours after they are arrested for the crime. Pair this with an incompetent police force, so Phoenix has to get the evidence himself, and a corrupt prosecution making life harder for Phoenix, it becomes clear that if Phoenix Wright had to operate in the real world, it would be a dream for him. To the point that this probably offsets the procedural issues that Phoenix has, because even if he had to learn the procedures of a trial, he would have far longer to prepare and would be facing a significantly easier trial than he typically does, having to prove far less with far more time. So with the stage set, what would happen if these two came face to face? Well, the final thing to consider here is that when you call these two, you aren't just getting them. They have allies. If you call Saul, you'll be getting his partner Kim Wexler, Mike, who does all his dirty work for him, as well as Huel and the film crew, who when working with Jimmy takes his schemes to the next level. And as crazy as that is, if we give Phoenix even just his assistant Maya, things become almost a little unfair. Because Maya, as a spirit medium, has supernatural powers. This really comes into play in 2 ways. The first is they have the ability to summon the dead. So, imagine a murder trial where they have the actual victim come testify. And secondly, the magatama that Maya gave Phoenix gives him the ability to peer into people's souls and determine if they are lying or hiding secrets, giving Phoenix the ability to see through any deception Saul might throw his way. With this being the case, Saul will have to do what he does best and whip out every trick in the book to make sure that this case never reaches trial. Something that he actually has a good chance of pulling off, as Phoenix is constantly walking right into traps. I mean, one time he was literally tased by the prosecutor and had his evidence stolen. So if he's really falling for something as obvious as that, Saul with his elaborate schemes will be giving Phoenix the runaround. That being said, Phoenix is no slouch, and always manages to fight back against even the dirtiest of tricks. So Saul can stall, but Phoenix once waited 7 years to bring someone down. Saul will likely need to do more than that to stop this trial. Taken to extremes, Saul could call in Mike, and have him try to kidnap Maya, or even kill Phoenix before the trial. But Saul's been shown to be unlikely to do these types of things unless his life was directly threatened. And even still, Phoenix has been shown to be willing to continue a trial even if Maya's life was at stake. And even as early as the second case from the first game, we've had murdered lawyers still show up in court due to being summoned by spirit mediums. Something that would really not work out for Saul if he had Phoenix killed. So, if Saul did the unlikely act of sending Mike after him, it likely still wouldn't work. Meaning this case will likely reach trial. As always, Saul will come out the gate swinging, with his unpredictability and persuasiveness to have the court dancing to his tune, while Phoenix will be building momentum slowly as the trial goes on. Meaning, the longer this case drags on, the tougher it will be for Saul. Since Phoenix is not only an expert at poking holes in testimony, but he just deals with tougher cases than Saul. He once had to prove someone's deceased twin sister came back from the dead to frame them for murder. Some straight bull. But assuming Saul's pulling out all the stops here, then Phoenix would be facing an uphill battle, especially in a 1v1. Since even Godot points out that Phoenix only gets as far as he does because others come to bail him out. But assuming Phoenix isn't alone, or if he even just has the Magatama, something that is standard equipment for Phoenix since the second game, he will likely see through all of Saul's tricks. In court, Saul frequently commits fraud, fakes testimony, and does some misdirection to make the witnesses seem foolish. But But as great as these tactics are, this is nothing that Phoenix isn't used to. Phoenix deals with corrupt prosecutors and shady witnesses all the time. He had to deal with fake evidence, false testimony, inadmissible evidence, and once he was even framed of the murder mid-trial. Not to mention the time that he and Apollo Justice had to deal with a case where the law was literally being changed mid-trial to counter his objections. It's just not on the same level. Phoenix is just going to be able to take apart Saul's arguments and craft a defense that will prove his client innocent. And yet, that is if his client is innocent. If Phoenix believed his client was guilty, then this whole case might swing back into Saul's favor. Phoenix's whole approach is about feverishly searching for the truth because he believes in his client's innocence absolutely. If he doubted his ability to prove them innocent, or if he doubted they were innocent at all, Phoenix would likely crumble under the pressure. I mean, bro is sweating bullets even when he thinks they're innocent. He's not gonna handle it if they're guilty. At least, that's how it's presented in the games. But if this case was taking place in the real world, then Phoenix Wright might just clutch up, even if his heart wasn't in it. Once he accepts a case, he knows he has to give a client a proper defense, something Edgeworth once had to remind him of. And in the main case where we see Phoenix defending a guilty person, he was only one step away from having them be declared innocent and someone else being declared guilty. So while you could say that in the games, Phoenix Wright might not be able to successfully defend a guilty person without assistance, in the real world, Phoenix would still have done more than enough to provide reasonable doubt. In essence, making it so that even if you were guilty and Phoenix accepted your case, there's a chance that in spite of him trying to prolong the trial for the truth to come out, he might still end up getting you declared not guilty with the more reasonable standards of our world. Well, even at his best, Saul, when forced to take a guilty client to trial, can only secure them a ridiculously reduced sentence. As shown when he thought it would be impossible for Lalo to be acquitted of murder, and the best he could do would get him the minimum charge for manslaughter, and the same thing happened when he thought Nacho was guilty. He thought he could only get him the minimum. In the end, it's strange. While I do believe Saul knows more about the law, can do more to prevent a case from going to trial, and will likely get a guilty party a smaller sentence, Phoenix, through his dogged persistence and expertly crafted counters, has a significantly higher chance of having you be found not guilty, whether you are innocent or not, all while seeing through the tricks of a corrupt prosecution. So, despite his best efforts, I believe that this is one case Slippin' Jimmy isn't gonna weasel his way out of. And in the end, Phoenix Wright truly does deserve the title of Ace Attorney.
Thank you. It's my job, Your Honor.
But that's just my thoughts on the matter. Be sure to let me know what you guys think. But for now, that's all I got for you today, folks. Be sure to smash that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.